Hey there everyone, my name is Andrew, and this is Canadian Starships. Welcome back to Canadian Starships, where we are working on two Enterprise E's, and if you saw that intro, you saw that both of them are fully lighted. We have them both up on stands. Both of them are fully lighted. The Arduino sketch is working well. There are some minor adjustments that we're going to need to make on them, but those are things that we're going to do a little bit down the road. We need to do some timing of sound effects and the lighting effects, that sort of thing. So the effect that you're seeing, although it's really, really nice, it's not going to be exactly the final effects as when the project is actually done. But both of them are to the point where we're going to start working on getting the seam work done. Hopefully, by the end of this update, we'll have all the seam work done and we'll have some primer down so that we can get to the good part, the paint, which is the part I'm really looking forward to. So let's get right at it. But before we get started, why not take a moment and click the subscribe button? And while you're here, click on that notification bell so you don't miss a single update. If you're thinking about buying a Tesla, you could save $1,000 by ordering using my referral code. Link is in the description below. Here we are over at the working bench, and I've got them turned on. However, right now I want to focus in on the wiring down here at the very bottom. So right here we've got the first of two Enterprise E's that you saw on the channel. And what we've got going on here is that each of the power lines for each of the various circuits is individually connected to a jumper wire and connected into the breadboard. Reason I did this was because I was uncertain about the power requirements of the model, how much power all of the various different circuits would be drawing. But through testing with the breadboard, I was able to determine that everything could run off of the same power feed. Now I'm running the Arduino on a separate power feed, and then all of the power sources for the LEDs in the model are on another. So let's take a swing over to the second Enterprise E here, and you can see that I've done some more consolidation work. So all of the power wires that can be consolidated together, so anything that is either controlled by the Arduino for effects with smart LEDs or anything that is constant on, can be consolidated together here. Anything that is a standard LED that flashes, for example, that has to still go to the Arduino separately on the positive side. Now all of the negatives are consolidated down to one. So all the main power going into the LEDs of the ship are running through now just one line with one jumper wire going into the breadboard, so much neater and tighter. And so for the next Enterprise E I build, I'm going to be able to do this quite a bit differently. Even the Enterprise D, the 1400D that I've got on the schedule, I'll be able to deal with the wiring in a much cleaner and organized way now that I know that the one power source can supply all the power needs for a model of this size. So with all that done, I will be able to consolidate down all of the main power feeds on this one over here, and that will tidy everything up. So we should be really good to go on to the next phases, which should be dealing with all of the seam work on the actual models, and I turn the lights off. So we are well into the putty stage now. I've done a ton of off-camera putty. Here's a look at the underside, which really does require most of the putty work on this project. This kit needs a lot of seam work. If you want it to look well, to look good when it's done, you need to do a lot of seam work. The saucer join definitely needs some work. The separation plane needs some work. Now you do want to be able to see the separation plane in case you think that this ship separates, which I think for all intents and purposes it's supposed to be intended to be able to separate. We've never seen it separate, and there's never been any confirmation. The area for the post certainly needs a lot of putty, but the area that is the worst on this kit is the pylon to secondary hull join area, especially where it melds down into the secondary hull here. So that requires a lot of work. I think I've got it pretty good now. Won't be able to know for sure until we have this thing in primer. The gray primer shows a multitude of sins when it comes to seam work on these things. The putty also hides a multitude of sins when it comes to imperfections on the kit. So it's a kind of a double-edged sword, the primer, but it will reveal a lot of areas that need work before the base coat goes on. So this is the underside. I've just freshly put some more putty down. I'm using the Perfect Plastic Putty, and for a lot of these fine seams, I am making a slurry out of it so that it goes down into those seams a lot better. The nice thing about the Perfect Plastic Putty is that it's water soluble, so you can literally sand it with a wet Q-tip, and that works really, really well. So a little bit of a fun little technique there for you. So I've got most of the seam work done on the bottom. There's not a lot on the top. There's the other side of the pylons, and there's the neck area, and some areas kind of around where the saucer joins the neck on these corners. That's kind of just designed poorly on the kit they have to deal with. So I'm letting this dry up. We'll flip it over, take a look at the other side. So now we're looking at the top of the Enterprise E, and there are far fewer areas that require putty work. A couple of the areas are the back of the nacelles. Obviously, that terrible seam where the pylons join the secondary hull, there's a little bit of work that has to happen at the back of the tail fin for the shuttle bay. The cap for the neck actually gave me quite some hassle on this particular kit. The other one went on fine. This one was a bit of hassle, so I've had to do a bit of extra work on this. I'm curious to see how this one turns out once the primer is on it. But that is all of the seam work on the top dealt with, and I've started to prepare this for primer. So I've got the phaser array on the top all masked off, and I've got masks down over the opening for the chiller grills. I need to put some fiber into the open holes for the navigation lights to protect those, and a few other areas that just require a little bit of preparation ahead of time. I've already got some masks in on the impulse engines here. The shuttle bay back here and observation deck, they've been masked off for quite some time. So we're almost there to be able to get primer down on this kit. So she's getting ready for primer. I'm going handheld so I can show you what I'm working on. So before I prime, I always put adhesion promoter on. I'm using the Duplicolor adhesion promoter, which you can usually find in the automotive section of your hardware store. I get this at Canadian Tire here in Canada. I've already masked off all of the clear bits, like the deflector that you see there. But one of the things I'm doing now to prepare is I am protecting all of the navigation lights with small bits of fiber. So they are secured temporarily into the openings for the navigation lights, and that will protect those openings from getting too much primer in there and blocking the lights from being able to shine. So I've done that on the bottom part. I've just secured them temporarily in with a little bit of silicone because that'll come right out afterwards. So I'm going to let this cure up a little bit. Once those are secured in place, I will put primer down, and then we'll rinse and repeat on the other side. All the rinsing and repeating is done. The entire thing is primed. Now, this one isn't the one you just saw. This is the first of the two, and I got this one fully primed about a week ago, so this has had a good chunk of time for the primer to cure. I would highly recommend, especially when you're going to be doing a ton of masking, that you let all of the primer really, 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 and I can't say that enough, have enough time to cure. It will be dry quite quickly. I just sprayed the top of the other one about 10 minutes ago, and it's probably dry to the touch, but it will not be cure. And if you do not want your masking to pull off, leave your primer coat to fully cure. So now this one is ready to get its base coat on, and so we're going to get the airbrush out, spray that down, and I'll show you what it looks like in base color. So before I lay down the base color on the model, I am laying down a very light coating of pure white paint. What this is going to do is it's going to assist the base color in showing properly because the paint is going on top of that dark gray primer. So the white is going to lift up the tones of the surface, and then the color that I'm going to mix for the base color won't have to work quite as hard to show properly. Now, I don't need a full coverage layer of the white on top. I'm just putting enough down that it's going to bring the darkness of the primer up to a brighter tone and allow that mixed color not to have to work quite so much. So it can actually get away with less paint on the surface by doing this. Here she is in the initial pre-base coat white pass. It's a very light coat. You can actually see how patchy it is. You can see the gray coming in underneath. That's just enough to bring that gray, that dark gray tone up so that the base color doesn't have to work so hard. Now we're going to be going with a bit of a cooler mixed version of Insignia White. So I'll start with an Insignia White as a base, and I'm going to cool that down with some grays, and that's what we're going to do for the base color on this particular copy of the kit. We now have base color coat down on the model, and she's looking mighty fine. So I've done up a slightly cooler color than the Vallejo Insignia White. So it's a little bit of a cooler tone, and I've done the full ship, and it's required several touch-ups. There were a number of spots that I didn't notice had some additional seam work needed when the gray primer was down on it, but I've been able to touch those up, get the paint down, and she's looking really good. So what I have to do now is allow this to cure for a couple of days, and then we're going to get into doing all of the Aztec and detail painting on this. But that's going to happen in the next update. And that's going to be everything for this update on the Enterprise E projects. I'm really excited that we've gotten to the state that the base color is on at least one of the models. Now the other one, the primer is still curing. I should be good to lay base color down on that anytime now. I'll get that prepped and base color. You'll see that in the next update. What we've got left to do really are two main stages when it comes to finishing the models themselves. We've got all the detail painting to do, so that's the Aztecs and all the other details. Then once that's all sealed in, we've got the decals to do. So the kit provided decals plus decals that I make myself for these kits. Now we are going to be using on this model the Mask Design masking set, which is awesome to have. Last time I did this kit, I did all of the masking by hand, cutting very, very narrow strips of blue painter's tape and cutting them into tiny sections and layering them down. That took forever, but this time around, now there is a mask set from Mask Design that we are going to use and highlight in the next update video. I'm going to take you through the process of using these, and I'll give you a review of what I think about them when we're done. So make sure that you tune in to the next update to get that detailed overview of the Mask Design kit for this model. So if you've enjoyed this update, make sure that you hit that like button. If you're new to my channel or you haven't done so yet, why not hit that subscribe button today? You'll make me very happy if you do. But for now, my name is Andrew, and this is Canadian Starships. Have a great day, everyone.